Lara Okoye had everything a woman could dream of: wealth, beauty, and a mansion that stood like royalty in the heart of Ikoyi, Lagos. Her wardrobe overflowed with Italian gowns, her fingers sparkled with gemstones, and every room in her home echoed the voice of luxury. But inside her grand home, something vital was missing: peace. She had married Chuka, a gentle and successful man who adored her deeply. But their marriage, while outwardly perfect, was strained by silence, pride, and most painfully, the absence of a child. For 6 years, Lara had blamed everything and everyone except herself for their childlessness. "The house help brings negative energy," she would say. "I need someone who can maintain my standard." Maids came and left like whispers in the wind. Some stayed for a week, others barely 2 days. Lara found faults in them all. One was too slow, another didn't know how to fold her Hermes scarves properly, and one even dared to cook beans that wasn't soft enough for her liking. Chuka, though frustrated, kept silent. He tried hiring from reputable agencies, but even the most experienced domestic workers couldn't survive Lara's wrath. "You're turning this house into a hotel," Chuka once muttered, but Lara waved him off, lost in her mirror, perfecting her lipstick. She had no time for chores or complaints. Behind the pristine curtains and polished floors, Lara's body began to betray her. Sleepless nights, unexplained fevers, and sharp pains in her legs began to haunt her. Doctors had no answer. She looked healthy but felt like she was rotting inside, and still, the bell rang again. Another maid had just arrived, and this one would change everything. The new maid arrived that rainy afternoon with nothing but a small bag and a shy smile. She introduced herself as Noma, tall, dark-skinned, with striking eyes that seemed too quiet to be harmless, yet too sharp to be ordinary. Lara barely looked up from her phone. "Clean, cook, and don't talk too much," she said flatly. "You do those well, you might last a week." Noma nodded without a word, and that was the beginning. To everyone's surprise, she worked silently and quickly. The house sparkled. The clothes were ironed to perfection. Even Lara's tea was brewed exactly to her ridiculous standard: warm, not hot, a slice of lemon without the seeds, no sugar. Noma got it all right on the first try. Still, Lara didn't smile. "She's too quiet." "I don't trust those ones," she told Chuka one evening, swirling red wine in a glass. "Let's see how long she lasts." But Chuka was impressed. Noma was the first housemaid who had lasted 5 days without being screamed at. And more importantly, Lara's mysterious illness seemed to have taken a break. Her fevers weren't as frequent. Her legs no longer burned with fire at night. Even the doctor noted her improvement. "Whatever you're doing," he said, "keep it up." But peace in the Okoye household was never meant to last. One morning, Lara woke up and caught a glimpse of Noma passing through the corridor. She blinked. Noma's eyes were glowing. Only for a second. Yellow. Unnatural. Then they were normal again. "Must be the light," Lara muttered to herself. But unease gnawed at her chest. The next night, Lara dreamed of a woman standing over her bed, whispering in a tongue she couldn't understand. Her legs felt heavy, as if chained. She woke up screaming. Noma rushed in with water, looking calm. "Too calm, you had a nightmare, Ma," she said softly, but the house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like something was watching, and smiling. The house was too quiet. Even the usual Lagos bustle outside seemed muted, as if the wind itself held its breath whenever Noma moved through the corridors. Laura began noticing little things, mirrors fogging up even when there was no steam, shadows in corners that moved without a source, and a strange scent of burnt herbs that clung to Noma's room. One afternoon, while Noma was out buying groceries, Laura tiptoed into her room. She wasn't the type to snoop, but something had been scratching at her curiosity like a cat at a door. Inside, the room was immaculately clean, almost too clean. No clothes scattered, no bags, just a neatly made bed and a small wooden box beneath it. Laura hesitated, then pulled the box out. Inside were black candles, dried herbs, red sand in a pouch, and a crude clay doll with pins stuck into it. She gasped and dropped the box, stumbling backward. Before she could flee, the door creaked open. Noma stood there. No smile. No panic. Just those still eyes watching her like a hawk. "You shouldn't be in here, madam," she said calmly, as if discussing the weather. Laura forced a laugh. I was just cleaning. Thought I saw a rat." Noma nodded. "Of course." That night, Lara's illness returned with fury. Her legs felt like hot coals had been shoved beneath her skin. Her screams echoed through the mansion. Chuka rushed her to the hospital, but doctors were baffled. "There's no infection. No clot. No trauma. But her body is reacting like it's under attack." By morning, she couldn't walk. The doctors whispered about the possibility of amputation if the condition worsened. Chuka broke down. Lara's pride shattered. In her hospital bed, she whispered, "Call my mother. Tell her. Tell her I need her prayers." Back home, Noma stood at the window of the mansion, watching the rain fall. Her face was calm, but her lips curled slightly. The house was hers now, at least for a while. Laura had never known such pain. Not even during her surgeries or long years of infertility had she felt this helpless. She lay on the hospital bed, tubes in her arms and monitors beeping beside her, but none of the machines could explain the invisible fire crawling up her legs. Doctors gave her more painkillers. Nothing worked. Chuka sat at her bedside, worn and restless. "You'll be fine, Laura. You're strong," he said, forcing a smile. But his eyes were heavy with fear. This wasn't just sickness, something was wrong, and they both knew it. At home, Noma continued her duties without complaint. In fact, she became bolder. She began wearing tighter clothes, sometimes walking around the house barefoot with beads on her ankles that chimed with every step. The way she moved was different now, like someone who no longer feared consequences. Chuka noticed. So did Mama Eunice, who had arrived from Enugu and insisted on staying in the mansion to oversee things. A woman of deep faith, she sensed immediately that something was off. "Naem," she told Chuka, this maid. "There's something not right. She walks like she owns this place. She's the only one who can manage the house right now," Chuka replied, brushing her off. "Besides, we have bigger problems. Laura may lose both legs." Mama Eunice narrowed her eyes. "Exactly. And don't you see the timing? This girl entered your house. And fire followed." One evening, Mama Eunice entered the kitchen just as Noma was whispering over a pot of soup. Her hands making strange movements above the steam. Noma quickly straightened and smiled. "I was just praying for Madam's healing," she said sweetly. Mama didn't smile back. "You'll join us in prayer, real prayer, tomorrow morning. And bring that same soup you're cooking. I want to taste it." That night, Mama Eunice had a dream. In it, a dark figure with Noma's face stood over Lara, dripping black oil on her legs, laughing as the flesh sizzled. Mama tried to scream, but no sound came. The only word she could form was Jesus. And as she whispered it, the figure vanished. Mama woke up gasping, her heart pounding. She knew one thing for sure: this battle was not of flesh and blood. By morning, Mama Eunice was up before the sun. She wrapped her head in a white scarf, lit a candle in her room, and knelt to pray. The dream haunted her deeply, too vivid, too specific to be dismissed as a tired mind's illusion. She called Chuka into her room. "My son," she said, "we are not just dealing with sickness here. There is a presence in this house. Evil. And I believe it has something to do with that girl you call Noma." Chuka sighed heavily. "Mama, please. Let's not jump to conclusions." "Jump?" Mama Eunice's eyes sharpened. "She cooks for your wife, and since she came, Lara can't walk. Don't be blind, Chuka. The devil doesn't wear horns, sometimes, he wears an apron." Chuka didn't answer. He was torn. His mind wanted reason, but his spirit was disturbed. That afternoon, Noma brought a tray of food to Mama Eunice's room, pounded yam and vegetable soup. Mama stared at it suspiciously, then gently pushed the tray away. "I'm fasting," she said simply. Noma smiled without blinking. "Then I'll keep it here, in case you change your mind." "No need," Mama replied sharply. "I don't eat from just anyone." Their eyes locked. For the first time, Noma's smile faded. She left the room in silence, but the air behind her seemed to thicken. That night, Mama called for a family prayer in the living room. Chuka, tired and desperate, agreed. Lara was wheeled in from the hospital that same evening, against medical advice. Her condition hadn't improved. The doctors had begun talking about amputation again. Lara's face was pale, eyes sunken, lips trembling. As they gathered to pray, Noma stood at the back, arms folded. When Mama Eunice began to call on the name of Jesus, Noma flinched, but only slightly. Barely noticeable. Except Mama noticed it. She prayed louder. Noma's breathing changed. Then Lara groaned in her seat and suddenly slumped sideways. The family screamed. Chuka caught her before she hit the floor. "She's not breathing." He shouted, "Mama Eunice KN." Mama Eunice knelt beside her daughter and placed a trembling hand on her chest. "In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth," she said, voice cracking, "every strange hand upon your life, let it be broken now." And then, Lara coughed, eyes fluttering open. She whispered, "Mama. I saw something in my room. It said it's not done with me yet." Mama held her tighter. "It is done, my daughter. As long as Jesus lives, this darkness cannot win." But deep in the servant quarters, Noma sat on her bed, eyes glowing once more. She began to chant softly, her voice like wine through dead trees. The battle had only just begun. The mansion no longer slept. At night, the air was heavy with tension. Light bulbs flickered for no reason. Doors creaked open on their own. And strange, whispering sounds echoed through the hallways, words no one could understand but that chilled the bones of anyone who heard them. Lara lay awake most nights, her legs wrapped in hot towels, sweat clinging to her forehead. Though her pain had reduced slightly since the prayer, she still felt watched. Violated. As if something, or someone, was inside her very body, feeding off her strength. Chuka barely slept either. He had begun to notice odd things. wet footprints on the marble floor even when no one had walked through, candles melting at alarming speeds. And his phone battery draining every morning, despite being plugged in overnight. Mama Eunice intensified her prayers. Every morning at 3 a.m., she would anoint the doors, sing hymns, and declare scriptures out loud. The maid, Noma, now avoided her. But even that avoidance didn't bring peace. Then came the night of the whisper. It was past midnight when Lara suddenly woke up with a start. Her heart was racing, and she had the strange feeling that someone had just spoken into her ear. She turned. No one. But then the whisper came again, "Give up. Give in. You're already mine." The voice was low, female, and terrifyingly close. Lara screamed. Chuka jumped out of bed and rushed to her. But the lights refused to turn on. The room remained cloaked in a strange darkness that even the phone flashlight couldn't penetrate. Mama Eunice burst in with her Bible, shouting, "Holy Ghost fire. Every hidden darkness, come out." Suddenly, the air cracked like thunder, and the lights came back on, and there, on the mirror across from the bed, was a single handprint. Black. Smudged. Dripping like ink. No one had touched the mirror. Noma did not come out of her room that night. But in the morning, she was in the kitchen as usual, cooking like nothing had happened. Mama Eunice decided it was time to dig deeper. That day, she called an old friend, Sister Ruth, a woman known for spiritual warfare. "There is evil in this house," Mama said, her voice firm. "I need you to come. And come fasting." Because the whispers in the night were only the beginning, and the house was about to reveal its secrets. Sister Ruth arrived the next day, small in stature, but her presence filled the mansion like a fire roaring through dry grass. Clad in a plain white blouse, a long skirt, and carrying nothing but a Bible and a bottle of anointing oil, she walked in with eyes that saw deeper than the surface. "She is here," Sister Ruth said the moment she stepped into the house. "And she is not just a maid." Chuka looked confused, but Mama Eunice nodded. "We are ready. We've prayed. We've fasted. Now, we must expose her." Lara, weak but conscious, had been moved to the guest room. She gripped her mother's hand as Sister Ruth led them all into the master bedroom. They began to pray, quietly at first. Then with growing authority. As the prayers intensified, the air in the room grew heavier. Sister Ruth stopped and pointed to the bed. "There is something hidden beneath," she said. Chuka hesitated. "We've checked everything." "Not like this," Ruth replied, kneeling beside the bed and placing her hand on the floor. She began to pray in tongues, her voice sharp like a whip. Suddenly, she reached underneath the bed and pulled out a folded wrapper, one Lara didn't recognize. Inside the wrapper was a bowl, small, carved, and filled with oily, black liquid. It pulsed like it was alive. Nestled beside it were burnt feathers, a locket with Lara's baby photo, and a small piece of bone. Lara gasped. "What? What is that?" "It's a spiritual altar," Sister Ruth said. "A sacrifice. Someone has been summoning spirits and feeding them with your life essence." Chuka stared at the items, horrified. "But how did this get here?" Sister Ruth didn't answer. She stood up and declared, "Bring her." Mama Eunice went downstairs. Noma was in the laundry room, humming to herself, folding towels with eerie calmness. "Mama says come upstairs," she said gently. Noma turned. And smiled. But this time, her eyes glowed faintly, no longer bothering to hide. "I was wondering when this part would come." She followed them upstairs willingly, as though attending a ceremony she had waited long for. As she entered the bedroom and saw the exposed altar beneath the bed, she did not flinch. Instead, she whispered something under her breath. The lights went out again, the mirror cracked, and Lara began to scream. Darkness swallowed the room like a beast. Only the flicker of Mama Eunice's candle kept the shadows at bay. Lara writhed on the bed, her body convulsing as if invisible hands were dragging her into the grave. Chuka held her, shouting her name. But her eyes rolled back, and her lips trembled with strange words not her own. Sister Ruth did not panic. She stepped forward, her voice like thunder. In the name of Jesus Christ, I command every foul spirit, manifest now. Noma, standing calmly near the door, began to laugh. Not like a maid. Not like a girl. But like something ancient and venomous. Her voice echoed unnaturally in the walls. You think your prayers scare me? She hissed. She opened the door. I only walked in. Sister Ruth didn't blink. Who are you? Noma's body jerked. Her eyes rolled back. And then a voice, not hers, spoke through her lips. I am Oshanta, daughter of the sea. The one who eats pride. She mocked the humble. So I claimed her crown. Mama Eunice fell to her knees, weeping. Jesus! Cover us! Sister Ruth advanced. You have no legal ground here. Her repentance has spoken. Her mother has prayed. Her husband has fasted. The blood of Jesus is against you. The spirit screamed through Noma's body, then collapsed to the floor, convulsing violently. Wind tore through the room even though the windows were shut. The mirror shattered completely. The bowl beneath the bed cracked open, spilling its black liquid like blood. Lara suddenly gasped, and then breathed deeply. She sat up slowly, trembling. It's gone. The weight. It's gone, she whispered. Noma, still on the floor, opened her eyes. But they were no longer glowing. She looked lost, like someone who had just awakened from a long nightmare. I don't know where I am, she said, dazed. Sister Ruth nodded. She was a vessel. Used. Possessed. But the chain is broken. Mama Eunice shouted, Hallelujah. But Chuka's face hardened. We're calling the police. Later that day, Noma was arrested. She confessed to being recruited by a woman named Madame Neka, a powerful spiritualist who trained girls like her to infiltrate rich homes. They were taught rituals. Assigned families. Paid with power. Lara listened in silence. Her pride had nearly cost her life. But that night, as she stood in her bedroom, on her own 2 feet, she knelt for the first time in years, and whispered, God. I see now. But the battle wasn't fully over yet, because the consequences were still unfolding. The days that followed felt like waking from a long, terrifying dream. Lara's healing had stunned the doctors. They ran test after test, but the mystery illness had vanished overnight. It's as if her body rewired itself, one said in disbelief. There's no medical explanation. But Lara knew. She now understood that not all battles are fought with medicine or reason. Some are fought on your knees. She stayed indoors for days, not out of fear, but to rebuild her spirit. She fasted for the first time in her life, read her Bible, and wept for all the maids she had mistreated, women who had entered her home hoping to work, only to leave with wounds and humiliation. Her heart broke with guilt. I was arrogant, Mama, she confessed. I thought I was too beautiful, too rich to serve. Even my home became a prison I decorated with pride. Mama Eunice embraced her. God does not reject the broken. He rebuilds them. Meanwhile, Noma's arrest revealed the dark roots of a spiritual network stretching across the city. The police raided Madame Neka's estate. What they found was beyond comprehension: rooms filled with charms, jars of human hair and fingernails, shrines glowing under red light. Some of the women captured confessed they had been rescued from poverty with promises of a better life. Only to be bound in blood covenants, Madame Neka vanished before she could be caught. But the curse on Lara's household had been broken. One Sunday morning, Lara walked into church with Chuka by her side. The congregation gasped; they hadn't seen her in months. She stepped up during testimony time, trembling as she held the microphone. "I mocked God with my pride," she said, voice cracking. "But He didn't give up on me. I was spiritually blind, spiritually crippled. But now I see. And now I walk." Tears flowed freely in the pews. Even Chuka wept. That same week, they welcomed a guest into their home, Grace, a humble, soft-spoken maid recommended by Sister Ruth. This time, Lara served her tea, and Grace cried, because no one had ever served her before. The mansion had changed, not in structure, but in spirit. Gone were the echoes of unseen whispers, the tension that once lived in the corners, and the pride that weighed down its halls. In their place now dwelled laughter, worship music, and the quiet peace of grace rediscovered. Sunlight poured freely into every room. The mirrors no longer reflected fear, but joy. Lara stood in front of one now, dressed in a simple blouse and wrapper, her face fresh with no makeup, her eyes alive with purpose. Grace, the new maid, stepped into the room nervously. "Madam, I've cleaned the living room. Should I start with the dishes?" Lara turned and smiled, a warm, sincere smile. "No, Grace. Let's do it together." The young girl stared at her in disbelief. "Together?" "Yes," Lara said gently. "You're not just here to clean. This is your home too, as long as you're under my roof. And I'm not too big to wash a plate." From that moment on, a new rhythm began. Lara woke early, said her prayers, helped around the house, and often shared meals with Grace and even the driver. Her relationship with Chuka deepened. They prayed together now. They laughed more. They even began attending Christian marriage counseling, not because they were broken, but because they wanted to grow. And then the miracle came. 2 months later, Lara woke up with nausea. At first, she laughed it off. But when it didn't go away, she went to the clinic. The test was positive. She was pregnant. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she held the result in her trembling hands. The woman who had once scorned humility, who lived above everyone else, had been restored, not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally. That Sunday, she gave her testimony once again. "The Lord broke me," she said to the church. "And from my brokenness, He birthed something beautiful. I once ruled my home with pride. Now I serve in it with love. And I am not ashamed." The crowd stood to their feet, clapping, many in tears. Back home, Grace stood at the window watching the sun rise over the mansion, and in the servant quarters, her Bible, the one Lara had gifted her, lay open, underlined on a verse, "The greatest among you shall be your servant." Matthew 23 verse 11, indeed, the shadows had fled, a new dawn had come. Hi bestie, thanks for watching. Kindly comment your thoughts about the story in the comment section below. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new story. Once upon a time, in the city of Enugu, Ifeoma woke up gasping. The pain in her stomach was blinding, like something was twisting her womb from the inside out. She clutched her abdomen and rolled to the edge of the bed. Then she felt it, something wet. Warm. Sticky. She looked down and froze. Blood. Her hand trembled as she stared at the dark red stain on her nightgown. The sheets were soaked. She tried to scream, but her throat locked in silent terror. A familiar dizziness washed over her, and she collapsed back into the pillow. Not again. Not again. This was the third time in 5 months. Always the same pattern: joy, then cramps, then blood. She had been pregnant again, and just like the last time, the life inside her had vanished by morning. She lay still for minutes until a movement in the corner of the kitchen caught her eye. The mortar and pestle. The one Mama Abub, her stepmother, had given her on her wedding day. Ifeoma stared at it. She had used it the night before to pound yam for Dyke, her husband. It looked harmless. But every time she touched it, her body reacted strangely. Coldness, shivers, nightmares, especially the dream, always the same, her stepmother squatting in her father's compound at midnight, singing softly and pounding something thick and red. A lullaby of curses followed. A stubborn girl will cry, but never be called mother. And every time the pestle hit the mortar, blood spilled over. Now it was happening again. She looked at her belly and whispered in horror, "What if? It's not just a dream." Ifeoma was only 10 when death knocked on her door and snatched her mother away. It was a dusty harmattan morning. Her mother kissed her forehead gently before leaving for the market, promising to bring back fresh okra soup. But by evening, her body was wheeled back, lifeless. A truck had lost its brakes, crashing into the market square. Mama never made it back. Everything changed after that. Her father, Chief Namdi, once a lively, proud businessman, shrunk into a quiet shadow of himself. He buried his grief in work, leaving Ifeoma to be passed from one uncaring relative to another. For 5 long years, she yearned for a warm embrace. Then one day, her father returned with a woman in gold lace and red lipstick. "This is your new mother, Mama Abub," he said with a rare smile. "She will take care of you." At first, she did. She bought Ifeoma clothes, made pepper soup, took her to the market, laughed loudly at her jokes. For the first time since her mother died, Ifeoma felt seen, but the warmth faded quickly. The moment Mama Abub noticed how much Chief Namdi adored his daughter, how he gave her pocket money, praised her intelligence, and kissed her forehead before anyone else, her smiles turned to stares, her voice hardened. Her punishments became brutal. One night, Ifeoma mistakenly spilled water in the kitchen. Mama Abub's face twisted. "Useless girl," she screamed. "Do you think you're special because your father looks at you? You will suffer in this house." That night, Ifeoma slept outside in the cold. No blanket. No light. Only the wind and her silent sobs. It became a routine. The worst came when Mama Abub found Ifeoma's hidden photo of her late mother and tore it to pieces, right in front of her. "Let's see if this dead woman will come and protect you now," she spat, tossing the pieces into fire. Ifeoma cried until her voice broke. It was a Sunday morning. The air was thick with incense and the quiet murmur of early prayers. Ifeoma walked into St. Mark's Parish with Mama Abub and her stepsister, Ebubeki. The pews were nearly full, but Iphioma loved this part of the week. It was her only escape from the haunted walls of her home. They sat on the first row. The choir sang with angelic passion, and the priest, an elderly man known for rare spiritual insight, took the pulpit, but halfway through his sermon, he paused, he stepped down, walking slowly along the aisle. The congregation went silent. Eyes followed him as he approached Iphioma's row. Then he stopped, directly in front of her. "You," he said. Pointing, Iphioma blinked, confused. He gently placed his hand on her head. "The light of this family rests upon you, my child. Through you, doors will open. Through you, wealth will come. You shall be the pillar of your father's house." A ripple swept through the church. Some clapped. Some cried. But Mama Abub's eyes narrowed like sharpened daggers. The priest turned to Ebubeki and rested a hand on her head too. "You must guard your path, my dear. Do not let your desires ruin your future. Be watchful." That was all. By the time they got home, Mama Abub could no longer contain her fury. "What kind of nonsense is this? Why not my own child? I labored for 9 months, nursed her, trained her, yet it's another woman's daughter that God has chosen." Her eyes burned holes into Iphioma. "She will not shine in this house. Over my dead body." That night, she sat alone in the kitchen, whispering things to herself. Dark things. Vows only the shadows could hear. The wedding was the talk of Enugu, held at the grandest event center in the city. The hall glittered with golden drapes, chandeliers, and the scent of fresh roses. Iphioma, dressed in a flowing white gown, looked like a queen. Her groom, Dyke, a wealthy, kind-hearted man she had met at the bank, could barely take his eyes off her. Dignitaries filled the seats. Cameras flashed. Music soared. Laughter echoed, but in a shadowed corner of the hall sat Mama Abub. She smiled on the outside, but inside, she was boiling. "This girl has taken everything," she thought bitterly. "My husband's love. A priest's blessing. And now, a rich man." As the couple prepared to leave, guests came forward with gifts. Mama Abub stepped out with a beautifully wrapped wooden box. "My daughter," she said sweetly. "I know our past wasn't perfect. But this is from my heart. A gift for your kitchen, for your new home. May your marriage be fruitful." Iphioma hesitated. Something about the box felt wrong, but Dyke nudged her gently. "It's from your mother," he whispered with a smile. "Take it." She did. She opened it later that night. It was a small mortar and pestle, dark-stained and heavy. 3 months passed. One evening, she used it to pound pepper. As the pestle hit the mortar, a cold shiver shot down her spine like ice. Her hands trembled. She paused, confused, but brushed it off. The next morning, she woke up in a pool of blood. The cycle had returned. Only this time, it was more vicious. Every time she used the mortar, or even if her maid did, she bled. By the 4th miscarriage, she stopped pretending. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Iphioma sat on the edge of her bed, trembling. The bleeding had stopped, but so had her period. No pain. No blood. Just silence. The doctors were baffled. "You're not pregnant, but you're not ovulating either," they said. It was like her womb had vanished. Her nights were sleepless. Her pillows soaked with tears. Every embrace from Dyke felt heavier, like she was apologizing for something she couldn't control. One evening, she whispered to her husband, "What if I can never carry a child?" Dyke held her tightly. "Then we'll still have a beautiful life," he said. But she could hear the ache behind his voice. Her father, Chief Namdi, called more frequently. "When will I carry my grandchild?" he asked. Ifeoma always forced a smile. "Soon, Papa. Soon." But inside, she was drowning. Then one day, her best friend, Amara, texted, "This is spiritual. Join this prayer chain. Fight back." At first, Ifeoma hesitated. She had prayed before, nothing changed. But something inside her stirred. Desperation birthed boldness. She joined morning and night prayers. She fasted. She cried. She laid her hospital reports before God. "If you don't help me, no one can," she wept. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon at work, she felt it, a sudden rush of nausea. She dashed into the restroom. Vomited. Amara followed. "When last did you check if you were pregnant?" Ifeoma laughed weakly. 3 years ago." They rushed to the hospital. 30 minutes later, the doctor walked in smiling. "Congratulations, Mrs. Ifeoma. You're 2 months pregnant." She screamed. Cried. Fell to her knees. It was a miracle. They told no one, not even Mama Ebiop. Only her father knew. 9 months later, Ifeoma gave birth to a healthy boy. Her husband wept with joy. Back in the village, when Chief Namdi announced the birth, Mama Ebiop came outside shouting, "It's not possible. I tied her womb." Silence. Everyone stared. "What did you say?" The chief asked. "I did it." She confessed. She wasn't supposed to give birth. And then, she collapsed, right there. Gone. The evil she sowed swallowed her whole. In a hospital far away, Ifeoma held her baby, smiling softly. The curse was broken. Not all gifts come wrapped in kindness. Pray. Discern. And never stop fighting spiritually, even if your battle is invisible. Hi bestie, thanks for watching. Kindly comment your thoughts about the story in the comment section below. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new story. If Alma Danso had known that morning would be the last time she'd see her mother's eyes open, she would have clung to her hand a little tighter, whispered, "I love you," one more time, and maybe even sung her that lullaby her mother always hummed when the power went out. The hospital room at Korolbu Teaching Hospital in Accra was far too quiet for a place that had once echoed with her mother's laughter. 10-year-old Alma sat beside the bed, her small hands gently wrapped around her mother's fragile fingers. The 4 beeped rhythmically, but her mother's breaths came slow. "Far too slow, Mama," Alma whispered, trying to hold back tears. "Are you going to get better soon?" Her mother stirred gently, her eyelids fluttering like butterflies. Even in her sickness, her smile held beauty, the kind that made Alma feel safe. "My sweet Alma," her mother said, her voice no louder than a breeze, "I want you to remember this always. No matter what happens, I will never stop loving you. Never." Alma blinked fast. "But we're going home, right? You and me." Her mother only smiled, closed her eyes, and that was the last time Alma ever saw her soul peek through those eyes. That night, under the heavy Accra rain, Mama Danso passed away. 3 months had passed since the funeral. Their once bright home in East Legon now felt like an empty shell. Mr. Danso, Alma's father, buried himself in his real estate work, often traveling between Cape Coast and Kumasi. He barely spoke anymore. The light in his eyes had dimmed. Alma missed everything about her mother, her warm hugs, her melodic humming while stirring banku, her stories about the moon being a watchful grandmother. Nights were hardest. Alma would cry into her pillow, whispering, "Mama, please come back. Just for a minute." Sometimes, she swore she could smell her mother's favorite perfume, jasmine and shea butter, wafting through her room. Sometimes, she'd feel fingers stroking her hair, calming her when she was too restless to sleep. But when she turned around, there was never anyone there. Mr. Danso noticed her sadness, but he was battling his own storm. Then, one day, he returned from Kumasi with unexpected news. "Alma," he said, smiling for the first time in months, "I want you to meet someone special." A tall woman in a vibrant Kent headwrap stepped into their living room. She had a sweet smile and eyes that seemed warm, at least at first. "Hello, Alma," she said. "I'm Madame Elsie. Your father tells me you're very smart." She handed Alma a doll dressed in Ghanaian traditional clothes. "I hope we'll be friends." Alma, starved for affection, clung to that hope. Elsie made her father laugh again. She cooked delicious meals and helped Alma with homework. When they got married at a modest church in Adenta, Alma wore a yellow lace dress and held flowers just like a bridesmaid. She told her classmates, "Now I have a new mama." For a while, the house was filled with laughter again. Elsie braided her hair into pretty cornrows and taught her how to tie her wrapper properly. "You're like the daughter I never had," she'd say, hugging Alma tightly. But the winds were about to shift. The joy in their home didn't vanish overnight. It faded, quietly, like sunlight slipping beneath the ocean. At first, Alma thought Madame Elsie was simply tired. She no longer braided her hair or hummed while cooking. Her smiles grew stiff, her voice lost its warmth. One afternoon, as Alma dropped her school bag by the couch, Elsie snapped, "Must you always scatter the house like a street child?" Alma blinked, unsure what she had done wrong. "I'm sorry, Auntie. Sorry won't clean this mess. Pick that up." Now. It became more frequent. Criticism over things Alma barely understood, plates not scrubbed enough, socks not folded correctly, her footsteps too loud. Still, she hoped it was just mood swings. But everything changed the day her father left for a 2-week business trip to Tamale. That morning, as his car reversed out of their compound, Alma waved goodbye from the porch. Madame Elsie stood beside her, hand on her waist, expression unreadable. But the moment the gate closed behind the car, her face transformed. She turned sharply to Alma. "Now listen very carefully, little girl," she hissed. "While your father is away, I run this house. No more laziness. You'll earn your food. Am I clear?" Alma's eyes widened. "Yes, Auntie." Elsie handed her a list. "Sweep the compound. Wash the dishes. Scrub the bathroom. Wash all laundry, by hand. Mop the entire floor, but I have school tomorrow." Alma said timidly, "Then wake up earlier," Elsie snapped. "You will do what I say. That's final." That night, Alma collapsed on the thin mat in the corner of the living room, her fingers blistered from scrubbing the floor. She wasn't allowed to sleep in her bed anymore. Elsie said it was a privilege, not a right. Alma cried into her pillow, silently mouthing, "Mama, help me." Then she smelled it. Jasmine. soft and sweet, drifting in the air with no source. Her heart fluttered. A presence enveloped her, gentle but unmistakable. And then, arms. Warm arms wrapped around her from behind, though no one was there. A familiar voice whispered, "Be strong, my daughter. I am always with you." She gasped and turned. The room was empty. But the fear had gone. The next day, Alma rose at 5 a.m., sore and aching, to begin her chores. The pattern repeated: kindness when her father was home, cruelty the moment he left. Madame Elsie gave her meager food, sometimes skipping meals altogether. She forbade her from touching her schoolbooks unless her chores were perfect. Her once bright home had become a silent prison. At school, Ms. Nyarko noticed. "Alma," she said gently after class, "you've been looking tired lately. Are you all right at home?" Alma hesitated. She wanted to scream the truth. To show the welts on her hands, the hunger in her stomach. But fear wrapped its hand around her throat. "I'm fine, Ma," she lied. Ms. Nyarko didn't believe her. But she didn't push. One night, after scrubbing the veranda till her knees ached, Alma lay on the mat again. This time, her mother appeared in full light, no longer mist. She wore a white dress that shimmered like moonlight. "Mama," Alma cried. "My precious girl," her mother whispered. "You must be patient. Your time will come." "When?" "I feel so alone." "Very soon. But you must prepare. Study hard. Your education is your key. When the door opens, you must be ready to walk through it." And with that, she vanished, but this time, Alma felt something new settle in her chest: hope. For weeks, Alma moved like a shadow in her own home, seen only when work needed doing, heard only when scolded. Her hands were always raw, her eyes dim, but inside her heart, something new had begun to flicker: resolve. She remembered what her mother had said: "Your education is your key. When the door opens, be ready to walk through it." She didn't know when or how that door would appear, but she promised herself, when it did, she'd be ready. It happened one hot afternoon at Iensu Memorial Primary School. The ceiling fan buzzed lazily above the class as Ms. Nyarko wrote something exciting on the chalkboard: "Accra Rising Scholars Competition." She turned, smiling wide. "This is a national competition. The winner will receive a full scholarship to any secondary school in Ghana, plus support through university." The class burst into chatter. Alma sat up straighter. "A scholarship? Could that be the door? But only one student can represent our school," Ms. Nyarko added. "And I have made my decision." She turned toward Alma. "Alma Danso will represent us." Alma's mouth fell open. Her classmates clapped, and some even cheered. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. After class, Alma ran to her teacher. "Madam, are you sure?" "Me?" Ms. Nyarko placed a hand on her shoulder. "You have a gift, Alma. And I know there's more behind your eyes than you let the world see." At home, Alma wrestled with the news. She wanted to shout it in joy, but fear caged her voice. Still, the next day, she tried. "Auntie Elsie," she began gently at dinner, "my school chose me for a competition. If I win, I could go to the best school in Accra." She hoped for a smile. Instead, she got silence, then, a bitter laugh. "Competition? Who gave you permission for that nonsense?" Alma shrank back. But, before she could finish, Madame Elsie slapped her hard across the face. Alma stumbled, gasping, "You ungrateful rat." Elsie snarled. "You think you're better than everyone now? You will not disgrace me with this nonsense. No competition. Forget school. Focus on the house." That night, she locked Alma in the storage room, without food or water. In the pitch-black room, Alma sobbed. "Mama. I'm trying." The air shifted. Jasmine filled the room. "I am here," her mother's voice said. "This is your path. You must find a way." The next morning, Elsie let her out with a fake smile. "Have you learned your lesson?" she asked sweetly. Alma kept her eyes down. "Yes, Auntie." But in her heart, she had made a vow, she would still enter that competition. Even if she had to do it in secret. At school, she pulled Ms. Nyarko aside. "I can't tell my father. He's always away. And if my stepmother finds out again." She trailed off, her voice cracking. Ms. Nyarko took a long breath. "All right. Then we'll train in secret. You'll stay after school each day. I'll say you have special classes." So it began. For the next 3 weeks, Alma stayed behind as the sun dipped over across skyline. She studied Ghanaian history, mathematics, science, and public speaking. Her teacher was amazed. "You're a natural," Ms. Nyarko said. "Your mother would be proud." Alma smiled faintly. She already knew, she could feel her mother every evening, warm, invisible, beside her. The morning of the competition arrived wrapped in golden light. Alma woke before the first rooster crowed. She bathed quietly and dressed in her finest, a royal blue dress with gold trim, the last gift her mother had bought before falling ill. The fabric still smelled faintly of her, the soft scent of shea and jasmine. She slipped out of the house quietly. Madame Elsie believed she was attending a school sanitation day. She would never suspect the truth. Ms. Nyarko waited by the school gate in a taxi, smiling proudly. "You ready?" Alma swallowed hard. "I think so." "You don't need to think. You are." They arrived at the University of Ghana campus just before 9 a.m. Hundreds of children from all across the country had gathered. Many wore uniforms from elite international schools. Alma, in her simple dress and scuffed shoes, felt invisible, until she remembered her mother's voice. "You are my daughter. You carry my strength." She straightened her shoulders. The competition had 3 stages, a written test, a speech presentation, and a live interview. For the test, Alma's hands trembled as she received the question sheet. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Mama. Please be near." Suddenly, the room filled with a breeze. Jasmine, her fear vanished. She picked up her pen. The questions were difficult: history of Ghana's independence, math puzzles, comprehension passages, but Alma felt something guiding her hand. All those weeks with Ms. Nyarko had prepared her more than she'd realized. Next came the speech. Each contestant was to speak on the topic, "My Dream for Ghana." Alma stepped on stage, palms sweaty, knees wobbly. The bright lights blurred the faces in the crowd. Then she took a breath, and saw her mother in the front row, smiling. She began, "My dream for Ghana is a future where every child, no matter how poor, can go to school. Where girls like me can rise from kitchen floors to classrooms. Where education is not a privilege, but a promise." Her voice grew stronger. Her eyes lit up. Judges nodded. Some clapped softly. One even wiped a tear. The final stage, the interview, the panel of judges, professors, politicians, philanthropists, looked down at her curiously. Alma Danso, why do you want this scholarship? She hesitated. Then decided to tell the truth. My mother died when I was 10. Since then, life hasn't been easy. But she always told me one thing: education is the only thing no one can take from you. I want to make her proud. And I want to help other children who suffer, like I did. Silence. Then one judge, a woman with silver braids, smiled warmly. That's all we needed to hear. The competition ended by noon. Ms. Nyarko hugged her tightly. You did it. Did I win? You already did, she whispered, but official results would take 2 weeks. Alma returned home with the weight of the world in her chest and a flicker of hope burning bright. That night, she lay on her mat and whispered, Mama, I tried. The jasmine wind returned. You didn't just try, her mother whispered back, sitting beside her in spirit. You shone. You rose. Whatever happens next, you've already won. The 2 weeks that followed the competition crawled like snails across hot pavement. Every tick of the classroom clock felt like thunder in Alma's chest. Each passing day brought a new whisper from her classmates. I heard they'll announce it this week. Someone said it's already been decided. But Alma stayed quiet. She didn't tell anyone, not even her best friend, not even the wind. At home, the old darkness returned. Mr. Danso had traveled to South Africa for a month-long training, and Madame Elsie once again wore her cruelty like a crown. You walk like a queen now, eh? She'd say mockingly. Scholar girl. Useless girl. Alma said nothing. She scrubbed floors. Washed clothes. Ate once a day. Slept on the mat, but this time. Her spirit was different, because now, she had tasted purpose. She had found her voice, and she wasn't letting go. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, as she swept the compound, she heard Madame Elsie's phone ring. Alma froze. Yes, this is Mrs. Danso, Elsie said, lazily. Who? Scholarship. She paused. Her voice sharpened. What competition? What girl? Alma dropped the broom. Elsie stood, eyes wide, the phone trembling in her hand. She what? She asked. Her eyes flicked to Alma. She won. Alma's heart exploded in her chest. She won. She had actually won. For a moment, the compound fell silent. Then Elsie turned to her with eyes filled with something Alma had never seen before, fear. By evening, the whole neighborhood knew. A teacher had shared the news with the headmaster, who shared it with a journalist, who blasted it online. Poor girl from East Legon slums wins national scholarship competition. Photos of Alma at the university spread across social media. Reporters arrived at the school. The headmaster called an emergency assembly. The PTA scheduled a celebration. Alma Danso was a national sensation. When Mr. Danso called that night, his voice cracked with joy. My daughter, he said, weeping over the phone. My brilliant Alma. Your mother would be singing right now. For the first time in a long time, Alma cried tears of joy. The next morning, Madame Elsie tried to smile. She made jollof rice. She told Alma, you should sleep in your bed tonight. But Alma only smiled faintly. She knew the truth. Elsie's kindness was for the cameras, not her. That Sunday, the whole community gathered at the church. Alma was given a medal. Her classmates hugged her. Ms. Nyarko cried as she gave a speech. She is more than smart, she said, wiping her tears. She is brave. Alma's photo was on newspapers, blogs, even TV. She was offered a spot at Kumasi Girls Science Academy, the top school in Ghana, with full sponsorship. On the night before her departure, she stepped into the yard, barefoot. Mama, she whispered, we did it. We made it. The jasmine breeze swirled, and her mother appeared, radiant, dressed in white, her eyes filled with pride. You walked the fire, her mother said, and came out gold. I'm so proud of you. Alma choked back tears. Will I still see you? Her mother smiled, my time of guiding is done. But I'll always watch you. You are ready now. With that, she faded. Like wind through leaves. The next day, Alma stood beside the school bus that would carry her to a new life. Mr. Danso hugged her tightly, his face shining with apology and pride. Madame Elsie stepped forward, eyes watery. Alma, I was wrong. I was jealous. I didn't know how to be kind. Can you forgive me? Alma looked at her. Thought of every hungry night. Every bruise. Every prayer. I forgive you, she said softly. But I will not forget. She climbed into the bus, and as it drove away, the jasmine wind followed. At Kumasi Girls, Alma excelled beyond everyone's imagination. She topped her class. Joined the debate team. Won science awards. She never forgot the smell of jasmine, she never forgot her mother's voice, and she never let the wind stop carrying her name. Hi bestie, thanks for watching. Kindly comment your thoughts about the story in the comment section below. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new story.